would love to have your comments on there as well after this discussion. All right, what do we think? Should I dive in?
Kick it off.
Cool. Welcome, everybody, one more time. My name's Tibet. If we haven't met, I'm one of the lead developers of Hylo. I'm getting over a cold, so there's a chance I'm going to lose my voice or start coughing at some point. But we'll see. I'll do my best and then pass it over to the rest of the team. I just wanted to kind of give the intro. So I shared the spec doc in the chat. I'll put it there one more time in case you just joined. But basically, and I think actually maybe it's easier if I even just share this document while I talk through it for a moment.
Yeah.
For some people who like to kind of follow along that way. So, spaces and views, a new information architecture for Hylo. The reason we're coming to this moment of doing a sort of, I'll call it a medium level redesign of how stuff works in Hylo, although it won't have a huge impact on you unless you want it to. But there's a lot of issues that people have been bringing to us for weeks and months, some of them even maybe years, that we're trying to solve with this redesigned architecture. And so some of those main issues are currently the concept that we have of a stream versus a chat room versus a discussion post are all kind of blurry and confusing. Some people, they don't know when to use a chat room or when to create a discussion post, or why the stream and the general chat look similar but have a kind of reversed order of posts. So that's one of the main things we're trying to solve. Also, currently, if your group is using the stream-centric, kind of the stream is your home view instead of a chat room, there isn't really a good way to organize posts by topic or theme. It's kind of confusing right now. You have to use chat rooms, or you can apply a tag and create a custom view, but that's something we usually have to talk people through. It's not obvious in the user interface. Right now, when you create a post, you're forced to choose a chat room, and by default, it has to go to the general chat room, even if you're not really using that. So that is a little bit confusing. And in the background, we're actually tying chat rooms to hashtags. So posts that use a specific hashtag get connected to that chat room, which we originally thought was a cool idea, but ends up being more confusing than helpful. Currently, you can't rename chat rooms once they've been created. And the differences between different post types are a little bit unclear, when to use a discussion versus a resource. Also, another thing we're going to solve is groups can't currently choose which post types they want to use. We have, events, requests and offers, proposals, resources, projects. Right now, you have them all, and that can be a little confusing for people that don't want to use all of them. And also, child groups are a really awesome way to create, a team or a circle or a local region in your Hylo group, but they're often a little bit heavier or sort of a more significant thing than what you need or want in a lot of our groups. And there's currently no way to control who has access to different chat rooms in the group. You can do that through child groups, but people have asked for that. So we have this new concept that we think is going to simplify, unify, and solve all of these issues all at once, which we're calling spaces and views. And so basically a space is a container for content in your group. It's a little bit like a child group, but it's much more lightweight. It lives in your group menu. It replaces chat rooms completely, and each space can have a chat room in it. But the idea is that spaces are the way that you will now organize within your group if you want to have a team or a topic-based area or a working group or a project. And it also unifies the current concept we have of tracks for courses and funding rounds. Those will now become a specialized kind of space. Within a space, a view is basically a filter of the content in that view. So there's some built-in views for each post type. There's the events view that shows the calendar. There's a requests and offers view that shows all of your requests and offers, proposals. Those will continue to exist basically the way they do now, as well as custom views, which you can still create to kind of create a custom filter by post types or search terms or tags. So that'll work pretty similar to how it does now. And then a view mode is what we're calling within a view where you can toggle between how you want to view the content. Is it a stream, a calendar, a map? And we'll introduce other ones in the future. And so when you create a post, you send it to a space. And every group has a sort of main space, we're calling it. And so if you just send a post to a group, it appears in the main space. Or you can send it to specific spaces that you've created inside the view. And you can create as many spaces as you want. This is actually very similar to how Mighty Networks and Google Chat organize things, using the word spaces as well. So it will also make migration from those platforms to Hylo simpler. And so I'll do just a very quick overview of how this works, and then Aaron's going to show you the designs, which will make it much more clear. As I mentioned, every group has a main space. All the posts that you create in the group go to that main space. There's a home view, same as now. So the home view you can choose to be your activity stream or the chat, the main chat room, or your calendar or map, or whatever you want your home to be. And then you can create additional spaces. And so each space has a name, you can rename it. You can choose the home view in that space. And so each space has its own set of views. It can have its own calendar, its own map, its own set of requests and offers, its own chat, and you can choose which is the home view that you go to when you click on that space. And so for groups that have a bunch of chat rooms in this next migration, those chat rooms will be converted into a space that just has a chat view. And so it'll work exactly as it does now. When you click on the space name, you'll go straight to that chat room. But you can customize that with and add, other views to that space. You'll also get a member directory. And so right now you don't know who's in a chat room. So now every space will have its own list of the members that are a part of it. And you'll also be able to control who has access. And so some spaces can be hidden and invite only, sort of private. So, many of them will probably just be open to whoever wants to join. Some of them could be, you have to request to join. So it'll be much more powerful and flexible, or certain roles can join certain spaces, for example. I think, maybe the last thing before I pass it over to Aaron is just to run through the sort of built-in views. I already mentioned we're planning to rename what's currently called the stream to be all activity or all content. We'd love your feedback on which you like more, so it's much more clear that this is where you go to see the full stream of activity that's happening in Hylo across all your spaces, across even chat rooms. We're going to start showing little boxes of like the recent chats in that stream. So it's like, really, this is everything. And we think many groups will use that as their home. There's still a chat room. One of the main differences we want to discuss today is we're thinking about no longer showing other post types in the chat room at all. So it's completely separated, and it removes all of that confusion of should I create a chat or a post. And then chats are just for like short-term, quick, ongoing discussion, and posts are for longer form things that you want to have discussion over time and have a title and all of that. And that's something we want to discuss. Other possibilities are that we could show a little notice in the chat room about other post types so people know that they're being created. This is specifically for groups that want the chat to be their home view. Or it could be a setting in the space, whether you want other post types to appear in the chat or not. So that's something to discuss. But yeah, I think I ran through this. The main views that we offer will be all the different post types. You can create custom views with custom filters, and then there'll be special views that are similar to how they are now, a member directory, a map, the list of child groups. You can also put a child group directly into the menu still. the about page for the group, and a welcome page, which is a customizable page that new members land on first. All of that's exactly the same as it works now. And then all these views, except for the chat, will have the ability to toggle between the stream, a grid, a map, or a calendar view mode. So I think that's it. There's more detail in here. We're going to have space and group templates. We'd love your thoughts on those. Make it easy to create certain kinds. And yeah, we'd love your comments in this document. But I'll pass it now over to Aaron to actually show what this will look like with our sort of early designs.
Thank you, Tibet. Well, I'd like to start with a metaphor. One metaphor that's been really helpful for me while we've been ideating and working on this vision is that a group is like a building where people gather. It's like, a community center or an office building, depending on what people are doing in that group space. And to date, the way that the architecture of that group space has worked is that it's like one big room. In other words, by joining a group on Hylo, everyone's kind of in the same area together. What this innovation and step forward is moving towards is the ability to have rooms inside of the building. And so the spaces that we're talking about are kind of like different rooms, like a conference room or a place where people are sharing goods and services that's separate from the main space that anybody who joins the group comes in through the front door. They end up in the lobby. And now, in addition to a giant lobby, we have different rooms that people can go into and become members of those subspaces inside the group. And I'm going to walk us through creating a new group. Who here has created a group on Hylo? We got some folks. So what you're about to see is a little bit different than what you're used to. Try not to be alarmed. Okay, here we go. Let me share this window. Oh. Okay, and I think that is not working. Hold on one second.
I'll just say for the recording's sake, these designs are not finalized. So don't worry about every single detail being just perfect yet or how it's going to be.
Yeah. And I'm going to share this with you all. This is a URL. It's an interactive prototype that you can play with. So if you want to watch me do it, feel free. You can always play with it later. This will continue to be online. And I'll update this prototype with the insights that we get from you all during this meeting. Okay, so a lot of this looks very similar to what we have now. What really changes is the big changes are at the top. There's the ability to have templates for a group. And these are just ways to pre-populate the types of spaces and views in a group. For the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to be building the Bay Delta bioregion group, which is in California. The Bay Delta is the San Francisco Bay Area plus the waterways feeding up into the river that feeds the bay. And down here we have our main views, which actually this is a little bit out of date. I'm going to refresh this. Okay, so we have our main views here, which are chat, all activity and events. I can add views, and let's add a resources view. And then below that are spaces. And here's an open question. So we have each each space is basically a repository. It's like a bucket or a box where a different set of posts live. Right now, the way it works on Hylo is that there's just one place to put all the posts. That's the main area. What this will allow us to do is have basically subspaces inside of a group where a whole body of work can live without adding confusion or noise to the main space. And different groups have different preferences for how to show and interact with content. We've heard from some groups that showing posts inside of the chat is confusing, and other groups love it. And that's their main way to look at all the content in a group. And so here we have an option to turn off and on this feature, which allows any post within a space to be displayed inside of the chat. We're going to leave that on for now. And I've already configured this group quite a bit. We're going to have a buy nothing space in the group. We're going to have a tool library in the group, a local resilience space for people to discuss how to become more resilient. And then we're going to have some tracks. And these are, if you're not familiar with what a track is on Hylo, it's a learning journey that you can complete, individuals can complete and learn something, gain some knowledge, or even some groups are using this as a way to do training. So at the end of the course, they are able to get a role in the community. And then obviously the visibility and access settings are the same as what we already have, meaning who can see this group and who can join it. So we're going to go ahead and create this group. Bing. And the group is already populated. We're not going to go through the painful moment of having to invite everyone. And I'm going to just show you where the spaces are. So this first list of things, this is all in the main space. This is like the lobby of the community or the foyer. And underneath that are these headings with spaces under them. And these are full-fledged spaces with their own members and own sets of posts. And I'm going to show you first what a space would look like if I'm not a part of it. So it's kind of like joining a group, but I'm already in the group. And the threshold is much lower. We're not going to have separate agreements or roles and responsibilities per space. Maybe that would come later. But the goal is to create a membrane that you have to opt into. And what opting into it means is that you'll be notified of any changes to that space and be able to see all the content in it. Let's join this tool library. Boom, I'm in. And I could see now that this space is open, and I can see that it has 2 items in it. There's a catalog of tools that I could borrow, and I can also chat with people about the tool library here. And we also have in this community, we have a buy nothing group, which is also a list of, offerings that people are sharing for free, and a discussion. And then down here we have the tracks. So here's a track I'm already a part of. You can see I've completed 3 of the steps, and here's one I have yet to join. And this is kind of how tracks work right now. However, there's some important differences. Is there anyone here who has used tracks or seen a track? No. Okay, well, then the differences will be lost on this group. But I think we're making solid improvements. For instance, in the current paradigm on Hylo, because we don't have spaces and views, tracks are kind of this different, unique thing, similar to funding rounds. What spaces and views do is unify this experience so that tracks will work like any other space, and have the option to add views or content in specific ways. And we think it'll really help people to not only utilize this more effectively, but to it'll just make more sense. Editing spaces and views happens all right here in the menu. So you start editing the menu. If you're an admin of the group, you can edit the menu, and you see, oh, I can go into here, add more views to this. Well, this part's not working, but it's just a prototype. But this is how I would add a view or add a space to the community. And I can add another space. Let's add a chat space, which will allow us to communicate better. And what else can I show Tibet? Yeah, maybe I'll show the settings for spaces here. So just like for group creation, we're going to start out with templates. One of the super powerful things about Hylo is it's almost infinitely customizable. However, this makes things hard for especially somebody who's new to Hylo to get started. It's not clear what all the options are or how to configure them to get the most out of Hylo. We're hoping and moving towards templates because we hope that these templates will help make it easy to understand what the different customization options are and how they can help people. Another thing we've heard a lot from the community is the desire to limit the types of posts that a specific group or space has. For instance, many communities don't care about projects. However, having the project post type be available means that somebody might post a project which can confuse people in the group. This will make it easy to select or deselect which types of options are available to the members of the community. And then you can add views to the space, say where the posts will be visible. In other words, are these posts just inside of this room, just for these people, or can everyone in the group see these posts here? And who can join? Who in the community is able to be a part of this space? Right now we have open to all members, request to join, or invite only. Eventually we want to add role-based spaces, but that's not a initial version. But it would be really great to just, if you're a steward of the community, or you've been given the host role, or you're the accountants team, that just based on having a role in the community, you're able to be a part of it. Yeah. What am I missing, Tibet?
You can show the info, the space info.
All right. So once I've joined a community, we're going to complete editing this menu. Each of these has a little info button here, which is basically an about page for the group, where you get
Space.
to see the description of, or yeah, for the space, sorry. Where you see the description, which views are included, and who's a part of it. Who else is going to see all these things? Yeah. And I think that is a good place to pause. Do you have anything to add? No?
I mean, if you show the new post modal, we can.
Sure. Yeah, we can
It's
do
not
that.
all done yet, but it's basically when you currently where you go and you like see all the chat rooms that you can add a post to, that's going to be replaced by a list of the spaces within the group. So
Yeah.
same as now, you can send a post to multiple groups. You can also choose which spaces in the group to send it to.
Perfect.
And a couple other things to mention, the tracks, as Aaron showed them, that's an example of a space that only has one view currently. And so when that's the case, I mean, always when you click on the space, it's going to go to the home view. But in this case, it just takes you directly to that view, and there's nothing that opens up in the menu.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
That's one thing I wanted to note.
another way to say this is that if there is only one thing in a space, it has no menu. So, for instance, here you can see that there's only this track in the space. The space is get to know your bioregion. And there's only one thing in it, the track. So if I click on that, all I see is the track here. I see just the educational content. However, if I add something to this space, it would look more like this. I could have a chat inside the track, or I could have a calendar, or even an asks and offers circle that people who complete that track get to be a part of. Um, so all in all, I think this is a really big step forward in terms of clarity and legibility and making things easier to understand, but also in extending the ability for people to customize and really create the community that they're dreaming of. Yeah.
One other cool thing I'll mention is that under the hood, spaces are just child groups. And so this is like really bringing to life the way we've always thought about Hylo is like hole-ons, we call them all the way down. It's just these, nested child groups. And so the cool thing about spaces being child groups, like internally in the code, is that it gives us all of these things like the access settings and visibility settings and um, member directory and so many things that groups have that our current chat rooms don't have. um, and so there'll be a special kind of group type that won't appear in the main global navigation. But in the future, if a space becomes large and there's lots going on and it makes sense, we'll be able to just check a box to turn it into its own group and have it start appearing in the global navigation. So that's a really nice aspect of this. And again, it sort of simplifies the whole mental model of what's going on with Hylo. Yeah, so I think we're about ready to turn it over to discussion. A couple quick more things. Just how is this going to impact your current groups? Um, Not too much, hopefully. The main difference is that currently, if you have a number of chat rooms, those will be turned into spaces that only have a chat view, like I said. And so they'll work exactly the same as now. You click on them, you'll go right into the chat room, all the posts will be there. Um, the biggest question, and so what's currently called the general chat will just be called chat in your main space. Biggest question we have that we want to discuss in a moment is around other post types appearing in the chat or not. Because if you currently use general chat as your home view, then all of the content in your group is basically appearing there. And we don't want to confuse people by removing all of that content right away. Um, so we have this question, like, should we just remove it and move it all it'll still appear in the all activity, what's currently called the stream, as well as the like post type specific views. Or we could have a setting. And for current groups, we could have the setting where we leave it on for the chat space to show other post types. So that in a moment, we'll get to that discussion. If your home view is currently the stream, then that will be renamed to all activity or all content. We're still just debating that. Otherwise, it won't change at all. Um, yeah, and I think that's basically it. I mean, as we said, spaces can be used for teams or working groups or circles, or they could be for topics or themes of conversation or regional subgroups, conferences, larger gatherings that want their own event calendar. But yeah, we'd love to just open it up and see, first of all, generally, like, how does this land for you? Does it make sense? How would you use it? And then we can get into some of these more specific questions. Moni.
There we go.
Hi.
Hello.
Um,
Oh,
Thank you all. My brain hurts a little bit, but it's just a lot of information. Um, we at Otherwise have quite a few different groups, and Krisha's been amazing just working with us to try and figure out how to bring these separate, and I don't know if I'm using the terminology right. I've only been in this role for a month, so I'm still getting like the Hylo terms, and I still don't know if I'm there right, but we, I think, created separate groups. Is that right, Krisha? And we want to bring them all into like our main otherwise group. So we're kind of waiting to hear from you all to see if we, and I believe that we will be able to bring the content within those groups chronologically into spaces and create spaces instead of groups. And I think that's right, Krisha. I'm just gonna look to you. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's going to be very easy for us to turn a child group into a space, and basically bring it into the main group in your menu in a way where it just feels much more seamless for people to access, and it feels like it's part of the same group. But it will still have its own space and member list and content, the way it does now. So I think that will just sort of instantly solve what you're looking for. The one question there is, are there members of your child group that are not in the parent group? In which case, we'll have to think about that migration, and can we like automatically bring those people into the main parent group?
I believe everyone, okay, I mean, I could be wrong, but I believe for the most part, people who are in the subgroups or in the child groups are part of the main group. But maybe we can, I don't know, is there a way to like do like a like printout or a CSV of our members just to double
Yeah,
check?
Yeah.
Or
I can help you with that, Moni. I'll send you a note about how to export member data.
okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, so I thought that was great. So it looks easier than the current system, so I'm looking forward to that. And I think I need to use it to understand how it flows, because I think the flow is what's going to be better for me. I did struggle with the existing stuff to the lot, So actually, I went for a long period where I couldn't use it, and then more recently, I've started to use it. But this looks just perfect. I've got a couple of interests really. So Mike and I are in a group which is already looking at things, and we do use it. And I think what I want to do just is take a copy of your recording, and we'll share it with them, because that went too fast for me to absorb it all. But everything, all of it looked pretty good. But I've also got a side project, which was with Mike there. Long ago, we invented project and program management style, which was for government policy to be clarified, planned and delivered. And we've been using that for 25 years, and it's in the public domain here. But what we want to do is to make it more easily in the public domain. And so we've been thinking about creating a DAO in which all the materials are there, slides and documents for people to read and so on. But the model that we had in our minds, and I'm sort of I don't know if there's an answer yet, is that a DAO sounds very neat for that, because you would put all the slides into the thing, and then you can very easily well, first of all, it would probably want to create it under a sociocratic structure, which is how our other thing works. But we would want to be able to have fractional ownership, fractional contributions, fractional compensation, and that's we would. It's how this does that do it. We can make that happen in as a sort of back end using Hylo, or do we need to think about the structure? What the relationship is between a website with all of the stuff in it, if we do that. But I can see the first step on that journey is to get the people that we'll bring together to create this version that is in the public domain. and we'd use, I think, Hylo to gather our information together, and then we would, when we understand all of that, we can then make the decision about, what we can do directly in Hylo, which does look really good because we want people to continue to grow the stuff that we did. Anyway, so those are my where I want to go with this, and that's why I was so excited.
Very cool. We also operate sociocratically, and realizing those governance patterns on Hylo and sharing those patterns with the world is part of our passion.
Yeah.
Because we really see this as a tool. Obviously, the administrator pattern, which is how Hylo groups work currently, that's normal. There's a leader and members, but we want to push towards more democratic and sociocratic outcomes so that different types of groups can thrive in online spaces. Because even if you operate sociocratically, as long as the structure and the architecture of the app is that old pattern, it's hard to get the two to work well together. So really, really inspired by what you're doing.
I'll just add that I think spaces are perfect for sociocratic circles.
Yeah.
And one thing that we will probably add in the future, we're not planning to in the first version, is the ability to have different roles within different spaces. Because they are actually just child groups, we have that ability. Like, you can create roles for members within groups, but we thought it would be a little too unnecessary and confusing in the first version, and then we would see if people really needed it and wanted it. But for sociocratic circles, you could imagine each circle having its own facilitator and coordinator, and the roles that they define in sociocracy. So that's something that we can think about for the future. And I'll also just say we're definitely pondering integrating with DAO software and thinking about different ways to track contribution and value flow within Hylo, but that'll be coming a little bit later. Jeff.
Jeff, I'm with the Eco-Civilization Coalition, and this I can see is just going to be super helpful for us, because one of the main things we want to do is build local and regional groups around the world. But I understand the importance of sociocracy, which we're also governed by. But I think the roles within each of those spaces are going to be very important, because you want to make decisions according in terms of sociocracy, but the implementation needs to be done more carefully. So not every member of each space or group should have access to be able to make changes to the space. Otherwise, may end up with some chaos. So how do we limit that? Is there an administrator access for those spaces? And then the other thing is, it'll be important for us that people in the various spaces can see the other spaces. So if they want to join to sort of look at what's available in another space, in another region that's doing something, they'll be able to do that. And then ask if they can borrow some resource that they have or things like that. Is that going to be pretty seamless?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For your first question, the way that spaces will work initially is that they will inherit the roles that the group has. So if you're an administrator of the group, you're an administrator of all the spaces, effectively. What Tibet was just speaking to is that perhaps in the future, we will need specific admins for each space.
Yep.
But we thought that might be too complex and too many changes all at once. So we've deprioritized that for the first version. But if we hear that it's really needed and desired, I
hope that we grow fast enough that we'll have hundreds of them within a short time, and then we'll definitely not want to have to administer all of those. So
yeah,
Yeah.
that's good feedback.
On the other point, yes, you'll be able to choose whether a space is public and visible to everyone in the group or not.
Okay.
So yeah, people will be able to go and check out other spaces and join them or preview them and decide if they want to join.
Great.
Mike, I saw your
Thanks.
hand. Yeah.
When Aaron was doing his presentation, I noticed, I think, a kind of menu option of decisions. Can you say something more about that option, how that's going to work?
Well, that's just what we already have. We already have proposals, which are pretty flexible. And so that's just going to be the place where proposals are found. One of the other nice things about the different view idea is that we're going to be creating more custom user experiences for different post types. So the proposals interface, which we may call decisions or governance, will be much more designed to support, like, okay, what are the upcoming proposals that people need to be paying attention to? When do they expire? Like what, just like making it more of a DAO-like governance interface. But initially, it's just going to be where you'll find all the proposals in the group.
Okay.
And then Gary, your question in the chat. So right now we have a moderation responsibility that all different stewards and different members of the group can be assigned. And so we have the sort of beginnings of what we call collective moderation, where anyone can flag a post and it gets blurred out and people can kind of discuss it and whether they think it should be flagged or not. And ultimately, right now, the moderators of the group make the final decision of whether it should be removed from the group or whether the blur should stay on it or not. We're still thinking about like improving that to be a real collective moderation system in the future, but right now it's the moderator's responsibility to make that final decision. And again, like in our current vision with spaces, we weren't thinking of having different roles. So the moderators of the group will be the moderators of the spaces, but it's sounding like people might want to have different roles within the spaces. So we could have the ability for there to be different moderators within each space, separate from the moderators of the parent group.
I actually removed that from the designs for this meeting because we thought it might be too confusing.
I think that'll be very helpful, probably fairly quickly for a lot of groups.
Great. That's really good feedback. Thank you, Jeff.
I'd love to dig into this very specific question we have around chat and whether other post types should appear in the chat or not, or whether people want that to be a setting. And the options that we're considering are, yes, the full post types appear in chat, which we're leaning away from because that's been confusing. Yes, but they appear just as little notices, like someone created an event and it just appears as a little notice in the chat and you can click through. No, we keep them completely separate, or we have a space option or group option. So you can choose when you're creating your group or space whether you want other post types to appear in the chat or not.
I'd be in favor of allowing each space to make that decision for themselves.
Yes, I would agree.
Cool.
I think I have a comment on that. I've just noticed that on the general chat, it can be kind of disorienting when you're expecting like a chat on a subject and then someone posts this long post that kind of ends with like, this is a program that you can pay for, and it's kind of like separate from everything else. So I think I would say keep the chat, and someone posted an offering, so that you don't have to read through the whole thing to find out at the end it's not really even in your country, or like, yeah. So
yeah. Cool.
That's good. Great feedback. Thank you, Danielle.
I have a question. We have gotten some feedback from stewards about people posting content in the wrong space. And I think the spaces and views architecture could really prevent that. And I'm also curious, is there any consideration around allowing stewards to move certain content to a different space where it might be more relevant, duplicate a piece of content. We can already duplicate posts, but just curious if that's something that we could consider in this is redesign, and also, the consent that goes along with it. So curious about that.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this. On Hylo, we have a very strong bent towards consent, meaning, and that people own the content. The individuals own the content. Meaning, if I post it to a group, it's my post. I'm sharing it with that community, and I can unshare it. I can remove that community from the list. And that principle of consent actually creates some tension, especially in cases like this, where it's like, I'm just a humble user of or a member of a community. I don't know which space it goes in. I put it in the wrong space. Now the moderator of that community has to ask me to move it. Whereas what Krish is pointing to is that maybe there's a way for me to give permission for people to move my posts around or to share them potentially. And I think that we need to, or I want to move in that direction. However, how do we balance that with our ideas around consent?
Yeah, and this is coming from purely an organizational standpoint. Like, yeah, but I totally hear the feedback.
One idea that I have had is that a steward, or potentially anyone else, there could be easy way to like recommend that this post gets added to this other group or this other space.
Yeah.
And then that gets sent as a notification to the poster with a button where they can just say yes or no. Yeah. And it just does it with it. So there's a very easy way to sort of ask for that consent without having to like click on their name, click on direct message, send them a message, hope they see it. And then they have to like go back to the message and like respond and then go to the post and like edit it. Like we could just make it a super smooth process of like, I think it should go to this space. Yes or no.
Yeah.
One other question that we thought would be really helpful to get all of your input on is, should stewards be able to rename the views? Right now, our inclination is that within a group or a space, that chat, events, requests and offers, map should always have the same name, so that it's consistent across Hylo groups, it's consistent across spaces, and people using the platform, it's just simpler. They can use that same mental model across groups. On the other hand, people like to customize things and make groups feel like their own. And maybe they want to call chat the water cooler, or they want to call events calendar, or, something else. And so we can see both possibilities, but we were curious what you all think about that.
And maybe I can demonstrate this real quick because it's a little bit abstract. Pull up the right window. Okay, here we are. So I'm here in, actually I have to refresh the page. In creating the Bay Delta bioregion group, we have these views here. Right now, the way this interface works is I can't rename these. They're kind of, the chat's the chat, all activity is all activity. In fact, all of the views just have primarily what their purpose is or what type of post they have. However, if I go to the secret menu down here, I can toggle this on, and we could see, I could rename this Introduce Yourself. I could call this the stream again because it was such a good name for so long. Mm-hmm. And for events, let's call it Meetups. The question is this level of customization helpful, or is it going to add confusion? we can see both points, and we would love your instincts and feedback.
Well, let me
So
say,
I can go ahead.
I'm just saying, as long as I don't see it, it's not going to confuse me. I mean, you had to know the secret menu. So I don't think that's going to be a problem unless somebody says, oh, I'd really like to change this, and then they get the secret code. I will just say, just because I haven't spoken here, I'm the administrator for the Icon site, which is just starting, and the biggest part of what we're hearing now, you're giving us now, is ideas about, well, how do we really want to structure this? Because it does seem a little confusing the way it is now. I think these changes are great, but I'm going to have to go back to folks and say, now, what is it we really want this to do? So this is really good information for us to figure out, how do we really want to use this site? So thank you.
Yeah.
My answer to your question is, could you not have an alias? A button that says, it's normally called this, but people call it their own thing. And if somebody doesn't know what that means, they can press a little button and it says stream or whatever. Oh, by the way, the other thing you said, all activity, I preferred all content, but I'm not really, I don't really mind. I'll learn whatever one you want to use.
Jeff, did you also have something?
Yeah, I'll just say that the EcoSub Coalition's been building our group on Hylo for several months now, and that issue of wanting to be able to rename things has come up many times. That we wished we had the ability to do that.
Okay.
Great feedback. Thank you. Great feedback.
I kind of like all the suggestions, like maybe making it a sort of power user feature that's not obvious at first, but it's in the advanced section or something. And when you, in the like info box of a view, maybe we like somewhere we say what the sort of default name is. Have to figure out how to do that. But
can I just add one thing? It does seem to me like for the group as a whole, we would like to be able to change the names, but I think it could become very confusing if we allowed the stewards of each space to change the names individually. I think you want some kind of, consistency across spaces within each group.
Yeah.
We definitely can rename spaces. That's not a question. It's the views within the spaces. Though.
That's what I mean. Views within a space. That's exactly what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing is that you want coherence, and sort of you don't want to have competing motives or objectives from the stewards of the spaces.
Right.
Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. Yeah.
So just to clarify, you're saying you want to be able to rename views, but then use those same names in every space within the group.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Okay.
But if you were able to rename anything, that would meet that need. Am I tracking that correctly? As long as
I'm not sure what.
Well, if you were the administrator of the group and you wanted to rename the chat in the main space to introduce yourself, and you had the ability as the administrator to edit all the other spaces and their chat names, that would meet the need that you're speaking to.
Yes, but that sounds like a lot of work. I think it would be better if what the settings for the main space sort of automatically changed all of the names in the spaces, right? And
that makes sense.
Then it would be more like an alias, like we were saying. Like this group uses this alias for those views. Just noticing the time, there's one more question I wanted to get out here, which is, would you want anyone in a group to be able to create a space and offer it to the group, or only the group stewards or some like role?
So for us, since we're envisioning potentially hundreds or eventually maybe thousands of local and regional groups, we would want them to be able to set up their own spaces.
Interesting.
And just to note that
that's just me speaking on behalf. I haven't talked to the rest of the team about this, but I'm just thinking that we don't want to make this so top heavy or bureaucratic that it doesn't allow for people to quickly create their own spaces. And as long as they're kind of following the principles and the purpose of the main organization, we want to give I would think we want to give a lot of freedom to local groups.
Just to name that in that case, those might be actually child groups, because anyone can create a group that then gets added as a child group to the parent. So you have to think about, like, is this really its own organization, its own community that then is joining the EcoCiv coalition, or is it a subspace that's really actually nested within the EcoCiv coalition? I mean, it's potentially a subtle distinction, but definitely people will always be able to create a child group. Do we want to let people create spaces directly within there?
Okay.
I think also, practically speaking, if there's that many spaces within a group, and I care about my space, we have to sort of think as a platform whether then, if there's 40 spaces in a group, how do I scroll down and find all those? Now we start having to also think about, okay, like, do we allow users to surface certain spaces that they care about first before the others? So there's some extra things for us to think about there in terms of large scale groups that we haven't gotten to yet.
And it'll be important that there's a location attached to like a local or regional group, so that it shows up on the map and then is searchable by geographical area.
Yep, that already exists, and is going to be a core part of both spaces and groups moving forward.
Right.
Noting that it is noon, and if people need to leave, that's great, but I could stay a few more minutes if there's more questions.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Danielle. Sorry, I had to join late. I appreciate the materials, and I'm just kind of diving back into Hylo from our Pacific Northwest Circular Economy Group. And one thing about having everybody, and I'm excited to be able to dive in. I just haven't really gone in too much in the last year. But I'm excited to see these changes you're putting forward. And when you think about anybody creating a space, one thing that I find as a struggle as a user in any place is where you have that chaos and proliferation. So like if the system could also, if you type in like, I'm going to name my space dog, the system would be like, hey, there's 3 other things named dog, right? And somehow just help the user in that independent creation just be more informed about what's already there. That might be useful.
Yeah. That's great.
I love that.
Go ahead.
My thought is the answer to the question is really, it depends on the groups, doesn't it? If you've got groups where there are thousands of people and lots of traffic, you could get, chaos just because everybody was, something happens in the world outside and everybody wants to add bits to it and so on. If it's a group where they understand the rules and so on, they might do it and more slowly. And I think that's the nature of the problem you've got to fix. I think it'd be fine for small groups, but when you think about thousands, people often want to get engaged and do stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for this really helpful feedback. I think one last thing we could put in the space just to ponder that we're not going to get into right now is like what templates might be valuable for groups and spaces that would kind of set up a default set of views and child spaces. Something to think about if you have ideas there. We're going to be working on that in the coming weeks, coming up with that list of templates.
That raises the question, are you going to convene this group again to take us to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine like partway through the process, we'll have a working prototype. The designs will be more polished. We could, yeah, I would love to do another call, and we'll have some more specific, detailed questions probably.
Very
Yeah,
good. I'd welcome that.
Yeah.
nice.
But thanks so much for doing this. It's really helpful to see what's coming.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks all for joining.
Yeah. Thank you for the feedback, everyone.
Thank you.
Enjoy your days or evenings,
Yes. Take care.
and we'll share the recording soon.
Wonderful.